Hello and welcome to this 12th video in a series of videos on systems thinking. My name is Bhaskaran and I am the faculty walking you through this series. In the last video, we spoke about an important thinking technique called the CATWO technique. In this video, we are going to further develop on this and talk about a few other techniques for thinking. Now you're going to ask me, hey Bhaskaran, thinking and techniques, what are you talking about? Indeed, there are ways and means of developing one's thinking skills. Dr. Edward de Bono is considered the father of creativity and the father of modern day structured thinking. He has worked with the Cambridge University at an institute called CORT, Cognitive Research Trust of the Cambridge University. And together they have come up with some techniques that help us structure the way we think and add value to any situation that we face, any problem that we are facing. The concept of mind mapping may be familiar to many of you. What many of you may not know is that mind mapping was a technique developed by Dr. Edward de Bono. And he said that mind mapping is a brilliant way of brainstorming virtually any kind of situation. Mind mapping is also a very graphical way of depicting a situation. Remember, many of us consume information in pictorial form, in graphical form. It is difficult for us to consume information from a table of numbers. If we are that kind of a thinker, mind mapping is the technique to use. When you're drawing a mind map, you can depict a wide variety of very complex scenario on a single sheet of paper. And then you could just stand back, look at the paper and start thinking about all the interactions between the various subsystems that you have drawn. And mind map is not a very difficult technique to learn. A little bit of practice and you should soon be able to draw your own mind map based on the kind of situation you're using. Now the beauty of the mind map is it can be used for virtually any kind of situation. It could be used in your personal life, it could be used in your professional life. And mind maps can be developed for simple systems, it could be developed for extremely complex systems. For example, let's imagine that you're trying to write a book and you're struggling with how to architect that book. What should go into chapter 1, what should go into chapter 2, etc. Start by drawing a mind map and immediately it hits you about how many chapters you need, what each of those chapters should contain, so on and so forth. On the professional side, for example, if you had a complex bug that you were trying to resolve, and it's not amenable to resolution, a lot of people have been working on it, they have not yet found how to appreciate and understand this problem and more importantly, how to resolve it. Then drawing a mind map of the system in which this whole environment is operating, talking about the interactions between the various subsystems is a piece of cake with a mind map. The good news is there are a lot of professional high quality tools out there that you can, some of them are freeware, so you could just download it and start using it straight away. Others you may have to purchase, but very important, very useful tools for you to start drawing mind maps. From the CORT Institute itself, Edward de Bono worked with professors at the Cambridge University to come up with 6 layers of thinking. He called them CORT 1 to CORT 6. And CORT 1 talks about techniques to broaden your thinking. CORT 2 talks about dealing with the thinking process itself. CORT 3 is about looking at two people situation. When you and one other person are discussing, debating and addressing an issue, how should you go about this? CORT 4 is about dealing with creativity, of which mind map is one technique. CORT 5 is about feelings, understanding how to use your feelings along with the information that you have to discuss a situation. Many a times as engineers, as doctors and as other professionals, we are asked to leave our feelings at the door. Whereas Dr. Edward de Bono says, hey, bring them in because feelings contribute tremendously to the way one thinks about a situation. Last CORT is about actioning, putting the thoughts into action, coming up with the decisions, helping you make a decision. These are the 6 CORT techniques that were developed at this institute. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm going to talk first about only the CORT 1 technique And the COT1 technique is further broken down into these kinds of techniques. It starts with 3-letter acronyms, whatever better way to say it. It starts with something called PMI. Traditionally, when you look at a list of attributes, you'll say, hey, you know what, this is positive, this is negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. COT1 tells us, you know what, there is a third way of looking at this list. And that is to say, this is plus or positive, this is minus or negative. Hey, I'm not sure about this. I will think of it as being interesting. If I was sure that it is negative, I would have moved it to the minus list. If I was sure it was positive, I would have moved it to the plus list. I am not yet sure, so I park it in an interesting list. This ensures that we do not eliminate characteristic traits, factors that we are not yet completely sure of. And you can go back and address that parking list later on. CAF is consider all factors. Now, if you were to deep dive into that technique, it tells you how to look at a different perspectives, like we did with the CATWO technique. It gives you other techniques to look at considering all factors of a situation. OPV, other people's view, and an extremely important technique for understanding a system. Remember the 5 blind men and the elephant? This is building on the same fable. How does it work? If you were to take a system, a situation, and you said, hey, how would the end user think about this? Or how would a customer look at this? Now, what's the difference between an end user and a customer? The customer is the person who pays for the service or the product. The end user is the actual person using that product. So, for example, if I were to buy a mobile phone for my child is the end user, I am the customer. But each of us have a different perspective of the system. My child would be looking at the features and the ease of use, and I am potentially looking at the life of the product and its cost of maintenance and its cost of initial purchase. Different perspectives about the same product. Then, of course, there is the sales and after sales people. They are the guys who have to service this product once it hits the market. They have a different perspective about the situation. You're talking about the development manager, he or she has a different perspective as the product is in the phases of development. Engineers, the development engineers themselves have a different perspective about the product. And of course, there are a whole host of other actors in the system. Each one of those actors brings his or her perspective to the situation. This is the way to structurally look and understand other people's viewpoints about a given system, product, or environment. Once you have understood all the actors that have a relationship to your system, on the right hand side as depicted in this diagram, you can list down all the characteristics of that system and how each of those characteristics impacts the actor and the relative importance of each of those characteristics to that actor. Analyzing a situation using this technique helps you, one, to change the perspective with which you look at the system. Number two, it helps you understand the most important characteristics from the different actors' perspectives. Number three, if you are facing a problem and you're trying to resolve this problem, you can understand which of those actors are most impacted by that problem, and therefore what's the appropriate kind of solution to determine. COT1 therefore looks at various ways of thinking about a situation. FIP is the first important priorities, where you really prioritize a list. Using, for example, OPV, you could come up with a prioritized list of various factors. Consequences and sequels. If I do A, B and C and D are likely to happen, what is the probability that each of these will happen, in which sequence would they happen, or would they happen in parallel, etc. A good way of understanding a situation. AGO, aims, goals and objectives. If you are developing a feature, why are you doing it? Who is it going to help? Who is it going to hurt? What is the purpose? Why can the actors live without that feature? So on and so forth. And of course, the last piece in this is something called APC, which stands for alternatives, possibilities and choices. Whereas where we are looking at coming up with a whole host of alternatives to a given situation, to a given solution, or to a given problem. And to just to restate a problem in multiple ways changes the way we think about a situation. And using just all the tools and techniques available as part of the CORT 1 suite already helps you broaden your thinking dramatically. I would therefore urge you, there's a lot of material about the CORT 1 suite of, or the CORT suite of thinking techniques. I would urge you to look at those techniques, understand them better, and begin to apply them in your day-to-day life. My personal favorite, mind mapping. I use mind maps wherever I can, whenever I can. It helps not only clarify my thinking, but it also helps me communicate my thoughts much better to the audience. I would urge you to look at, understand, and study the mind mapping techniques and use those techniques in your day-to-day life. Remember again, practice makes perfect. No skill comes without practice. Go out and practice. Thank you.